There we go. That's more like it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Josh, and today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently than we normally do. Before we get into the details of this car and taking it out on the road and all that sort of thing, I want to tell you a story about how we got here. Now, if you don't want to listen to the story, feel free to use the chapter toggle in the play bar to jump forward to the next chapter in this video. That's where we'll start talking all about this car. But for my longtime viewers and subscribers who have seen this car popping up here and there in my last few videos, this is for you. So to talk about how we got here, we have to go back to February of this past year of 2023 when I had a 2023 Lexus ES 350 to drive for a bit. Now, unfortunately, while I had that car, I didn't have enough time to do a full video, but I did record a few clips here and there of me absolutely gushing over that car, and let's take a look at one of those now. This car is so quiet. Literally, can we just with how quiet this thing is? And even when you rev it, like, it's so refined. I'm like legit upset that this is not my car. Now, here's the thing about the ES. It is a great car. It is beautiful inside and out, and I really do truly feel that it is one of the best products in the current Lexus portfolio. But the magic of the ES, the secret ingredient, the lemon in the strawberry sorbet, the salt in the chocolate milk, is that 2GR V6 engine, because I love that engine so much, and it truly does make the experience of driving any 2GR based vehicle so special. And here's another clip of me enjoying that engine in the ES. Oh, this thing pulls like nobody's business. Oh, I love it. So yeah, I love the ES350. I was so glad I got a chance to drive it, and that is one car that I would run, not walk, to my Lexus dealer. If that fits your lifestyle, absolutely you should go and buy one today. Now let's fast forward to June or July of this past year, and I had another 2GR Lexus in my driveway to drive for a bit. That time it was the 2022 Lexus RX 350. And with that RX, I did actually have the time to do a full video on it. And here is a clip from that video that should tell you everything you need to know about how I feel about that car. I love it. I just love this engine so much. This experience that we're having right now, where we don't hear the engine, it's so soft, it's so smooth, so refined, so comfortable as well. This is what I want from an RX. I want serene, I want comfortable, I want just this experience is what I want from an RX. And so once again, just like the ES, I mean, that RX is such an amazing product. Beautiful inside and outside. Absolutely incredible detailing on the interior. Beautiful real wood trim. All the sort of things that make me love old school Lexus. But the secret ingredient, once again, the secret sauce to that last gen RX was what made it a 350, the 3.5 liter 2GR V6. And it was actually after driving that RX 350 that I started to think to myself, you know, I really want one last old school Lexus and I want to buy it brand new. So in August of this past year, I bought my absolutely beautiful 2023 GX 460 with the amazing 4.6 liter 1UR FE V8, and I have never looked back. I am so glad I made that decision, and that is truly a car that will be staying with me for the rest of my life because the V8 is going away and I will not be able to replace it. Now, meanwhile, while all this is going on, while I've got the ES and I've got the RX, and of course, as I bought the GX 460 that we own and have had now for about 4 or 5 months, my husband John had also been driving all these cars, and he is also a Toyota enthusiast and, you know, loves nothing more than a great V6 sedan. But the thing about John is he had long since moved on from pure ICE vehicles to hybrids and plug-in hybrids. Back in 2018, I think, he bought a Camry XLE hybrid. It was at the beginning of this current generation of Camry, and that was our first hybrid, and he fell in love with it. And then in 2021, he was actually the one who bought our RAV4 Prime, so he had gone from hybrid to plug-in hybrid, and the plan was always to go full BEV after that. We were sort of just waiting for Toyota to make one that wasn't a POS. And then in early November, totally out of the blue, he walks into the kitchen and goes, "You know, I really think I want one last Toyota V6 before they go away forever. The Prime is still worth almost $40,000. We only paid $30,000 for ours, and I think I want to cash it in for a Toyota V6 sedan." And I was like, on today's episode of I Think the Not, because I love the Prime. I love owning that car. I love driving it. I love everything it does. It is an engineering masterpiece, and it is truly, in a market where every Toyota today seems to come with a ton of compromises, that is truly a no compromises car. So I was like, absolutely not. You are not trading the RAV4 Prime in. I will not let that car go. And mind you, it's not even my car, but I'm still telling him what he can and can't do with it. And he was like, well, but how am I going to buy a new car? How am I going to get my V6 if I can't trade that car in? And I was like, you know what? Okay, fine. If you let me keep the Prime, my beloved RAV4 Prime, I will give you the Prius. The Prius is also still worth way more than we paid for it. So that's what we did. He took my Prius, traded it in, and actually got all of what we paid for it back. And the dealer is now selling it for way over MSRP. And he bought a brand new car. And to introduce you to his new car, I want to share one of my all-time favorite Toyota commercials that they've ever made. So let's go ahead and roll that now.
My palms used to sweat when I had to get on the highway. Now with my Camry V6, I just punch. Yeah, punch it, Margaret!
My Toyota, I love it.
The 1989 Toyota Camry V6. 24 valves, 153 horsepower to please even the toughest customers.
We just fell in love with life in the fast lane.
My Toyota, who could ask for anything more?
And now I am so excited to introduce you to our brand new 2024 Camry XSE V6. 35 years after Margaret got the very first Camry V6, we now have the very last Camry V6. And I am so head over heels in love with this car. Although I miss my Prius dearly, I'm so glad that John was able to trade it for this car and that we were able to keep the RAV4 Prime alongside it. Now, since I'm sure everyone out there knows what a Camry is at this point, I'm just going to really quickly touch on what we bought. So, like I said, this is an XSE V6, and we got everything that you can possibly get on an XSE V6. So outside, we have the beautiful Windchill Pearl exterior with the midnight black metallic contrasting roof. We specifically found one with the pilot red leather interior. We have the panoramic moonroof. We have the JBL sound system, 360 camera, head-up display. Everything you can get on a Camry XSE V6 is somewhere on this car. And that was very intentional because, much like my GX, this is a car that we want to keep for as long as we can. But maybe the most amazing thing about this fully loaded top trim Camry V6 is that this was only $39,000, and this is a hell of a lot of car to get for $39,000. This is, as near as makes no difference, the same price as a fully loaded Prius. And you guys know I love my Prius, and I think it's a great car, but it is not nearly the kind of car that this Camry V6 is. And compared to the other two remaining 2GR cars in the Toyota and Lexus lineup right now, the ES and the IS both start in the mid-40s. So this Camry is highway robbery in an industry with very few bargains these days. And because there's not nearly as much demand for this kind of car as there is for a RAV4 Prime or a Prius, there are a lot of discounts to be had, and we got the retail price of this car was around $43,000, and the dealer essentially knocked off about $3,000 to $4,000, bringing it right under that $40,000 price point. So really, this is a steal in the Toyota lineup where everything is getting more and more expensive, and in some cases obscenely so. Now, one of the most surprising things I will say when we bought this car and took delivery and started driving it and getting to know it was how many small changes we noticed that Toyota has made over the course of this generation of Camry. For example, a lot of the interior plastics in this XSE for 2024 feel better than the 2018 XLE we had. Now, that may have been because it was a hybrid, so I don't know if the hybrid gets thinner and lighter plastics, but everything in this XSE feels more substantial, to the point where a lot of the plastics, a lot of the textures and the materials in and around this cabin have a lot of the Lexus bearing that even some new Lexus cars no longer have. Like the plastics and leather and everything in this car Everything feels thicker, more substantial, more high quality, and more durable than what was in my NX and the 2023 RX that I was driving not too long ago. The leather in this car is so thick that it's bordering on being stiff, so it's still softening up as we've gotten in and started driving this car. The door panels and the dash pad on this car, they're not just soft touch plastic, there's actual give, like the tops of these panels are a piece of rubber that's stamped with the kind of leatherette looking texture. So all that to say, you really do feel like you are getting a more premium product that is closer to the Lexus side of the house than Toyota, even more so than many Lexuses themselves. And keep in mind that unlike the Crown Sedan and Crown Signia, this is not being positioned as a premium alternative vehicle. This is a Camry that we paid, let me remind you, $39,000 for, and still I feel like I am getting a pseudo Lexus experience. So really, really surprising to me in that respect. And that story continues out on the road. So let's go ahead, get buckled in, and we're going to take this one last Camry V6 out for a drive. Even that engine startup is so quiet. Alright guys, so here we are setting out in the Camry V6. And, you know, I say this every time I get into one of these 2GR cars, but it's so refreshing. You know, we live in a world today where everything is now a Turbo 4 or a Turbo Hybrid 4 or, you know, some combination thereof or supercharged 4 or whatever you have. And when you get into a V6 like this, it really does remind you how cars used to drive. And it's funny to be saying that because it wasn't that long ago that this engine was in everything that Toyota made, even down to the lowly RAV4. At one point had a 2GR V6 under the hood. This car is just such a pleasure to drive because of this engine. And the funny thing about, again, getting back into this car now with this, you know, at this point rather antiquated engine, is because it's not a 4-cylinder like every other mainstream and even many luxury cars, it really does give you, it prints on the road and its driving characteristic like a luxury car. It's actually really quite funny. And here we're about to turn onto the tollway on-ramp. Now here, this is a brand new car, so I'm not going to punch it, Margaret, but we are going to open it up pretty much. We're going to open it up a little bit. And I mean, even on that acceleration run, it's so quiet, so refined, so smooth. And the thing about these 2GR V6s that I always loved about the 2GR V6, even when they're revving, they are so happy to do so. And they sound so good when they're revving. Now, out here on the highway, the other thing that was really surprising to me getting into this Camry is, you know, again, we owned an earlier version of this generation, Camry XSE, and it wasn't nearly this sound isolated on the road. You really do get a lot of the ES bearing without it being so overbearing. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that there are a lot of people out there who don't want a luxury car and who don't want to pay for a luxury car and who don't care about, you know, the wood trim and the, you know, more upgraded interior that you get in the Lexus. You're gonna get, like, I would say a good 85% of the experience of an ES in this Camry V6. It's kind of like buying a Tudor instead of a Rolex. You're gonna save like 50% the cost by buying a Tudor instead of a Rolex, but you're gonna get everything that, you know, spiritually makes a Rolex so wonderful in a Tudor. Alright, so here we are getting off the tollway, and we're going to hit some arterial streets that are paved in asphalt. So we'll get rid of some of the concrete viaduct noise, and then you'll really see how refined this Camry is. But keep in mind, you know, even as we've been on this concrete viaduct on the tollway, I've had the moonroof open, and still it's not obscenely loud in any way. And here we are now on kind of a main thoroughfare here, but again, asphalt paved. Getting up to speed, I'm on the accelerator. So quiet, so refined. I keep going back to how much of the Lexus experience I'm getting out of this car, which is not a Lexus. Like, it really truly does have that luxury car, old school Lexus kind of bearing to it in its driving characteristic, in its engine and noise profile, in the refinement that you get here. And it really does truly take me back to when all Toyota cars used to drive this way. I think I've forgotten over time, you know, just how amazing their old cars were. And their hybrids are amazing too. And you guys know that I love my RAV4 Prime. I loved our Prius. I loved our NX. And I really did love our Camry hybrid as well. But there's nothing like a good old V6. There just isn't. And because this is the XSE, we have a little bit of a sharper tuned suspension, but it's not crashy and ultra rigid the way that the Camry TRD is. And I've driven that car. I think that's overkill for a Camry, and then you're missing a lot of equipment in that car because it's basically an SE with a, you know, the sport tuned suspension and stuff like that. This XSE to me is the perfect balance between comfortable, refined, smooth, luxurious, pleasant driving, and the sharpness that you can get here when you put it in sport mode, when you get on the gas. And I think this car has slightly heavier steering than like an XLE, for example. And this is kind of the best swan song, I think, that Toyota could go out with this engine in it. I know a lot of people are disappointed that the Highlander went to the Turbo 4 way sooner than the Camry did, but you know, the Highlander is not really a driver's car. And I'm not trying to say that the Camry is a driver's car, but there's a certain kind of person who's still buying a sedan today. There's a certain kind of person who's still looking for a mid-size sports sedan today. And I think this car is probably the best thing that Toyota could have kept around to bid farewell to this engine. I know where we're going. I know that, you know, we're going toward more environmentally friendly cars, more fuel efficient cars, and that's amazing. And I think we absolutely should be doing that. But I'm really going to miss being able to go out and buy one of these kind of cars just on a whim, you know, the way you used to be able to. So that is a first look at our brand new 2024 Camry XSE V6. We are obviously still very much in the honeymoon phase with this car, but I will be back on next year to do likes and dislikes and all the kind of things I normally do. But all in all, I am so incredibly happy that we have this car and that we were able to get one last 2GR V6 while we had the chance. And the funny thing about where we're ending the year in terms of our car collection is now, with this Camry V6 in our garage, all three of our lowly little Toyotas make a tick over 300 horsepower. So, in the RAV4 Prime, we have the A25A with the plug-in hybrid drive system and the larger electric motors in that car that make 302 horsepower. Then this Camry and my GX both make 301 horsepower. And I think that's really a testament to how far we've come in terms of engine design and manufacturing, where we can get 300 horsepower out of a little 4-cylinder engine, because when the GX came out back in its day, the only way to get 300 horsepower was to have a big V8 engine. And it's funny because that RAV4 Prime is still, even with this Camry that does 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds, that RAV4 Prime is still faster at 5.5 seconds. So the one with the smallest engine makes the most power and is the fastest of all three cars. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I know I'm going to get shit in the comments for buying a new car, and you know what? I deserve it. I don't even have an excuse for this behavior at this point, but that is why I have friends, and I'm so thankful that through YouTube I've made friends like my girl Rizzy Bear, who also just bought one last 2GR V6 in the form of her 2022 RX 350 F Sport. Hers is also, just like this Camry, fully loaded to the gills. She absolutely loves it, and Rizzy, it is an amazing and beautiful car. And now we have the same engine, our 2GR V6s, and our red interiors. So again, congrats to Rizzy on that, and thank you, all of you, so much for making this such a wonderful year here on YouTube. Don't forget, I do have a Q&A coming up in January. You can still get questions in for that, so you can email me here at the email on screen. You can go leave them in the comments on that video. or leave them here in the comments on this video as well. So thank you guys so much. This will be my last video for the year, so I want to wish you all happy holidays, a prosperous new year, whatever you celebrate, whoever you are with. So thank you so much for the community, for all the watching, all the likes, all the comments. I will see you guys next year. Have an amazing rest of this one, and take care.